see, don't wanna call, don't wanna hear my tale. Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we're going to do a little bit of searching and talking about Atlantis. A little short on this. I'm going to be doing a little bit with Nina the Mystic here on September 4th. And so we're going to do a little wrap up on Atlantis and see where it leads us. And maybe you'll get enthused about it too, because I am. So as I'm digging, I found Plato's Atlantis. And I'm going to share that here with you. And here we go. I got this all put up anyway already. And share. There we go. So as you can see, here we go. This is Plato's Atlantis. It is from this book here. If you want it, I have the PDF on it, and I will send that to you. It's by Manly P. Hall. Atlantis, and an interpretation. Manly P. Hall, Atlantis, and interpretation. Okay. And we're just going to go right into this part. The digest of Plato. Wait a minute. This isn't it. This is a part. I went straight through this too far. The Lost World. There we go. We got a lot to cover here, people. Lots of stuff to cover here. And so I'm going to get right to it. An account of an Atlantean Empire. I'm going to blow this up so you all can see this a little bit. And I'm going to get rid of my ugly mug, and we're going to go to the full screen. Maybe we can get a little bit. Ooh. There we go. An account. There we go. Account of Atlantis' empire. According to tradition, Solon was given to the writing of poetry and had intended to preserve the Atlantic story in the form of a great epic. But the responsibilities of a statecraft pressing it upon the aged man forced him to abandon his purpose. Solon told the story to his inmate friends Dropus, who, in turn, recited it to his son Sitialus. In his 19th year, Sitialus communicated the account to his grandson of the same name, who later became a disciple of Socrates. It is in this way that the account descended to be incorporated finally in the Platonic dialogues as a part of a conversation between a younger Sitialus and his master Socrates. And that's how the story began. Solon, visiting Egypt, was nobly received by priests of Satis, and his request the Egyptians recited for him the ancient history of the Greek states. Their narration included an account of an expedition against the Hellenes attempted by the princess of Atlantis. The Timarius contains the following summary. In this Atlantic island of combination of kings was formed, who with mighty and wonderful power subdued the whole island, together with many other islands and part of the continent, and besides this subject to their domain, all Libya as far as Egypt, and Europe as far as the Tyrrhenian Sea. And when they were collected in a powerful league, they endeavored to enslave all of our regions and yours. And besides this, all those places situated within the mouth of the Atlantic Sea, but it succeeded in time, prodigious earthquakes and deluges taking place and bringing with them desolation in the space of one day and a night. All the warlike races of the Atlanteans was at once merged under the earth, and the Atlantic itself, it being absorbed in the sea, entirely disappeared, and hence the sea at present is innavigable, arising from the gradually impending mud which the subsiding island produced. And this, O Socrates, is the sum of what the elder Satis repeated from the narration of Solon. A fuller account is contained in Cialartus in this dialogue, the younger Sialysus enlarges the description which he received, but 10 years of age from his grandfather. In ancient times, the gods were allotted several parts of the earth, each receiving a part proper to himself and accomplishing the distribution by righteous and proper means. The various devotees established their races and civilizations and ruled over them with wisdom and virtue. But through the ages, numerous catastrophes destroyed these ancient civilizations until only traditions remain, vague memories of ancient splendors and the divine order of life under which all men dwelt together in peace. Poseidon, god of the seas, and the whole human distribution of nature, received for his lot the island continent of Atlantis, which was great in size, that of all Libya and Asia. At that time, the Atlantic lands were inhabited by primitive creatures, men born from the earth who abode in a crude and barbarous condition. In central mountains part of the Atlantic islands dwelt Endeavor, Avenor, his wife, Lucipede, and an only daughter whose name in the language of the Greeks was Ciliartio. After death of her mother and father, Poseidon, seeking Ciliartio alone and unprotected, became enamored of her. Taking the form of a mortal being, the god Poseidon changed the form of the land about the central hill on which Ciliartio dwelt. He made alternate zones of sea and land encircling each other. 2 were land and 3 were water, and each of the zones was exquisite in every way and as perfect as though turned upon a lathe. He then caused 2 springs of water to come up from under the earth, one warm and the other cold, to make fertile the central island. He devised every variety of food. He caused it to spring up abundantly from the earth, so that the island with its mountain became an earthly paradise, entirely protected by the great zones which he had fashioned about it. From Ciliartio, the god Poseidon begot 5 pairs of men children. He divided the island of Atlantis into 10 portions and gave each of them an allotment. To the firstborn of the eldest pair, he bestowed the central island, containing and the dwelling of Ciliartio, and made him king over all others. To the other 9, he gave great territories and rulership over many men, and he made them princes, and their sons after them. The 5 pairs of children received their names in this order: Atlas, Amphiers, Menesus, Epictetus, Aziz, Numulus, and Evimon, Autiacon, Mestor, Derperipas. It is to be understood that these are the great Grecian forms of original names. Solon declared that the Egyptians had taken the Atlantean names and adapted them to their language of their own country. He, in turn, had taken the Egyptian names and had Grecianized them. This is stated positively in the dialogue. Atlas had a numerous and noble family. His oldest son inherited the kingdom. The generation after generation, family prospered, and the empire of Atlantis gained so greatly in wealth that never before or again were such riches assembled. They took minerals and metals from the earth. They domesticated the animals and distilled fruits and flowers. There was an abundance of wood and gold so abound that they used it to decorate their buildings. With the passing of generations, bridges were built across the zones of land and sea, and a great canal was dug, uniting the outer zones with the central island. Palaces and temples were built until the great city of Atlantis surpassed all empires in dignity and glory. A great maritime trade was developed, and wonders were brought from every corner of the earth. Around the island and its zones, They built great protective walls and fortifications, and they plated these walls with brass and with tin and with strange red metal called ortilium. Ortilium. And the central island became a veritable Atropolis. In the middle of was the holy temple dedicated to Cilio and Poseidon, on the very ground where her humble dwelling once stood. This temple was inaccessible and was surrounded by an enclosure of gold. Here had begun the race of 10 princes, and here annually were brought the 10 portions of sacrifice. Proximate to this temple was another dedicated to Poseidon, alone of great height, having a sort of barbaric splendor, and pinnacles were of gold, and roofs of silver, and interior of the dome was of ivory. In the midst of the temple was placed a great statue of the god himself, in a chariot drawn by 6 winged horses, and surrounded by 100 Nereids riding upon dolphins. In a circle above this temple were statues of the first 10 kings and their wives, and many altars for their offerings. Following this description is detailed account of the palace and its greatness, the houses of servants and retainers, the palaces of titled persons, and the stadium, the docks, the harbors, and all that forms part of a great metropolis. The dialogue then describes the terrain of the central island. It was precipitous on the side towards the sea, but further inland there was a great level plain of oblong shape, surrounded by mountains, with many rivers and lakes. The plain was cultivated by a race of agriculturists who dwelt there. Great irrigation canals watered the land, and so temperature was the climate that crops were gathered twice yearly. The citizens of Atlantis were assigned to communities according to their estates and positions. Each community had its leader, and all were under the government of 10 kings, who were absolute monarchs. The kings, in turn, obeyed the laws of Poseidon, which had been inscribed by the first men on the column of precious substance which stood in the midst of the island. The most important of the laws were as follows: they should not take up arms against one another. All should come to the rescue in an attempt they were made to overthrow a royal house. They were to deliberate in common about war and about other matters, giving supremacy to the family of Atlas. The king was not to have power of life and death over any of his kinsmen unless he had the consent of the majority of the 10 kings. Such was the vast power which the god Poseidon had set up in the island of Atlantis. Such likewise was the strength which the Atlanteans attempted to use their conquest of the world. For many generations the Atlanteans dwelt together, practicing gentleness and wisdom, despising everything but virtue. They were neither intoxicated by luxury, nor did wealth deprive them of their self-control. They saw clearly that their wealth increased as a result of friendship with one another. So the Atlantean continent flourished for many ages, until at the last the divine portion within the people began to fade away. Their souls became diluted with moral admixture, and human nature gained ascendancy. They became unseemly and lost the fairness of their precious gifts. It was thus that the spirit of conquest came to them. They resolved it to increase their lands by violence and force. As service increased, and they no longer had an eye to see the true happiness. Zeus, the god of gods, who ruled the land with law and is able to perceive all things from his central home, beholding this once honorable race in the most wretched state, resolved to chastise it. To this end he collected all of the gods into his most holy habitation, from which he could see all that provoked the generation. And when Zeus had called the gods into conference, he spoke thus. Here ends Plato's story of Atlantis. Unfortunately, the words of Zeus remain unknown to us. It appears that the Atlanteans, in their pride, offended their Olympian father. He hurled his thunderbolts against their continent, shaking it with earthquakes and destroying it with horrible combustion. Thus passed the kingdom before the deluge, and because the catastrophe was so great and so large, a part of the civilized earth was destroyed. No records remain except tradition and the two columns set up as Satis. And this way passed the splendor of the old world, and Atlantis became a myth. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was the beginning of Atlantis. Yeah, we're going to stop sharing there. There you go. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. That was a little tidbit from what's going on with Atlantis. And maybe we'll continue on with Atlantis, the Lost World on the next bit. So with that, I'm going to bid you a humble abode and thank you for coming. And we'll see you again very soon. Just remember, go out, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. It's a great day in the neighborhood. Just do it. Go out, wave at your neighbor. And with that, you will be the frequency you want to receive. Thanks, everybody. Peace, everybody.